The galaxy was burning. Stars lit the darkness, but the light of war was brighter. Great fleets of steel clashed across the void, human battleships against alien war cruisers. Planets were scarred with fire, cities turned into smoking ruins, and entire worlds trembled under the weight of endless conflict. For generations, humans and the alien empire of Vena had fought without mercy. Each side claimed the other was dangerous, evil, unworthy of trust. Each side promised victory, but only delivered blood. Peace was nothing more than a forgotten dream. And in this endless war, two lives were about to collide, two lives from opposite worlds. The human fleet had been pushed back to the edges of the galaxy. Their supplies were running thin, their soldiers exhausted. Commander Ethan Cross, a warrior of Earth, fought on the front lines every day. He was known for his sharp mind, his courage, and his scars. He carried the pain of every soldier he lost, every battle that ended in fire. But he kept fighting. He had sworn to protect humanity, no matter the cost. On the other side stood Princess Lyra Vena, heir to the alien throne. To her people, she was a symbol of strength, elegance, and duty. To her enemies, she was a shadow of fear, a face they would never forget. But behind the crown, Lyra carried a secret. She did not believe in this war. She dreamed of peace, but peace was forbidden. Her family demanded loyalty. Her brother, General Kale, demanded victory, and the Council of Elders demanded her silence. Lyra stood on the high balcony of her palace on Vena Prime. She looked out at the stars, where battles raged and soldiers died. She had been told humans were monsters, barbaric, violent creatures who would destroy her people if given the chance. But in her heart, she wondered, what if they were wrong? What if the truth was different? The scene shifted to the battlefield. Ethan's unit had been sent deep into alien territory for a mission that had already failed. Surrounded, outnumbered, and wounded, his soldiers fell one by one until only he remained. His weapon was gone, his strength fading. Still, he stood tall, refusing to surrender. Captured and dragged before the alien court, he expected execution. Instead, fate placed him in the presence of Princess Lyra. She looked at him with sharp, unblinking eyes, curious, calculating. For the first time, she saw a human not as a faceless enemy, but as a man. And for the first time, Ethan saw an alien not as a monster, but as a woman. The galaxy would never forgive what happened next. Love was impossible between them. Her people would call her a traitor. His people would call him weak. Both sides would try to kill them for even daring to feel something other than hatred. But sometimes, destiny writes its own story. The narrator's voice cut through the images of fire and shadow. What happens when a sworn enemy becomes the one person you cannot live without? Flashes of the future appeared like broken glass across the screen. Ethan standing on a battlefield, holding Lyra's hand as war raged around them. Lyra crying as her brother raised a blade to strike Ethan down. A stolen kiss under the stars, hidden from both empires. Explosions tearing across space, fleets burning, while the two lovers refused to let go of each other. This was not just a story of war. This was a story of rebellion, of sacrifice, of love so powerful it could shake the foundations of empires. The galaxy would learn their names. The soldiers of Earth would whisper of their commander who loved the enemy princess. The halls of the alien palace would tremble with the shame of the heir who chose a human over her throne. Some would call it betrayal. Some would call it madness. But others would call it hope. Lyra stood once more on her balcony, her eyes full of longing as she looked at the stars. Ethan stood in his prison cell, battered but unbroken, thinking of the mission that had led him here. Neither knew it yet, but their destinies had already begun to intertwine. As the music swelled, the narrator gave the final tease. This is the story of a love that defied empires. This is the tale of the human warrior and the alien princess against the galaxy. The screen faded to black. The cell was cold. Ethan Cross sat on the floor, his hands bound with glowing cuffs that burned faintly against his skin. The alien guards had stripped him of his armor, his weapons, even the small photo he carried of home. All that remained was his will. He breathed slowly, refusing to let fear take him. Outside the bars, alien voices echoed through the dim corridors, harsh, metallic, and strange. The language of his enemies. Every so often, one of them would glance at him with contempt in their eyes. They expected him to break, but Ethan had fought too many battles to show weakness now. He whispered to himself, "You don't give them what they want. You don't let them see you bleed." Hours later, heavy doors slid open. The guard stiffened. A figure entered, her presence filling the space like a blade drawn from its sheath. She was tall, regal, dressed in dark silver robes that shimmered with alien symbols. Her face was striking, sharp cheekbones, pale skin glowing faintly under the torchlight, and eyes that held both fire and sorrow. Princess Lyra Vena. The guards bowed as she approached the cell. Her voice was calm, almost soft, but carried authority that made the air heavy. "Leave us," she commanded. The guards hesitated, then obeyed, leaving the human warrior alone with the princess of his enemies. The silence that followed was unbearable, broken only by the faint hum of the energy cuffs. Lyra stepped closer, studying Ethan through the barrier of the cell. She had seen humans before, but always on battlefields, always as corpses or enemies to fear. This was different. This one was alive, defiant. "You are Commander Ethan Cross of Earth," she said, her voice steady. "Your name is whispered even here. You have destroyed fleets, held cities, and led soldiers into fire. Some call you dangerous, others call you foolish. Tell me, which is true?" Ethan lifted his head, meeting her eyes without hesitation. "Dangerous to my enemies, foolish to those who underestimate me." For the first time, Lyra's lips curved slightly, almost a smile, but it faded quickly. "Do you know where you are, human?" "I know enough," Ethan replied. "Prisoner. Enemy territory. A place where I shouldn't be alive." Her gaze sharpened. "Correct. You should already be dead, but I spared you." The words struck him. He had expected no mercy from the alien court, no hesitation. Yet here she stood, admitting she had chosen his fate. "Why?" Ethan asked simply. Lyra's expression hardened, though her voice betrayed a flicker of truth. "Because I wanted to see you myself. To understand the man who fights as if the galaxy itself bends to his will. To know if the stories are lies." Ethan tilted his head, his voice dry. "And what do you see?" Lyra studied him in silence. Then she answered softly, "I see someone who refuses to kneel." The conversation ended as quickly as it began. Guards returned, pulling Lyra away, but something had shifted in that room. For the first time, Ethan was not just a prisoner, and for the first time, Lyra looked at a human not as a monster, but as a man. That night, Ethan sat in the shadows of his cell, thinking about her. She was his enemy, the face of the empire that had killed thousands of his people. Yet she had spared him, questioned him, looked at him as if he was something more than a weapon. Why? He pushed the thought away. Don't trust her. Don't forget what she is. But no matter how he tried, her eyes lingered in his mind like a memory he could not erase. The next day she returned. This time, she carried no guards, only a single lantern casting golden light through the bars. She stopped outside his cell and spoke quietly. "Tell me, Commander, why do humans fight so fiercely? Even when the war is hopeless, even when death is certain." Ethan leaned forward, his voice low but strong. "Because if we don't fight, we lose everything. Home, family, the right to decide our own future. You call us hopeless, I call it survival." Lyra listened, her expression unreadable, but inside, his words struck her deeply. She had been told humans were greedy, selfish creatures who fought only for conquest. Yet here he was, speaking of family, survival, and freedom. She whispered almost to herself, "Survival or pride?" Ethan's eyes narrowed. "Maybe both, but at least it's ours." The silence stretched between them, heavy but alive. Two enemies speaking truth in the shadows, while the galaxy above them drowned in lies. Their meetings continued in secret. Every time, Lyra asked questions about Earth, about humanity, about what it meant to live free. Ethan answered carefully at first, but slowly his walls began to crack. He spoke of the blue oceans of his home world, the the cities filled with laughter, the forests untouched by war. He spoke of music, of dreams, of love. And Lyra listened. No one in her palace ever spoke to her this way. To her people, she was a symbol, not a person. To Ethan, she was simply Lyra, and that difference drew her closer than she dared admit. But not all eyes were blind. General Kale, her brother, began to suspect. He noticed her absences, her late-night walks to the prison wing. He noticed the way her gaze wandered when humans were discussed in council meetings. He felt the shift in her heart, and he hated it. One night, he confronted her. "Why do you waste time with that prisoner?" he demanded. His voice was sharp, his armor glinting in the dim light. He should have been executed the day he was captured. Lyra's voice was steady, but her heart raced. "He is useful, a source of information." Kale stepped closer, his eyes burning. "Do not let a human cloud your judgment. They are filth. They are disease. Remember your duty, sister. Remember who you are." Lyra nodded outwardly, but inside, doubt only grew stronger. Meanwhile, Ethan began to wonder the same questions. Why was she still coming to him? Why did she risk speaking to him when her people would call her a traitor? And why, when he thought of escape, did a part of him hesitate, because leaving meant leaving her? The galaxy was at war, but inside that lonely cell, something else was beginning. A seed of trust, a dangerous bond, a fragile connection that both knew could destroy them. They weren't enemies. They were forbidden. And yet, in the silence of their stolen conversations, both began to feel the same unspoken truth. Something was happening between them. Something neither could stop. The night was restless on Vena Prime. Above the palace, the sky glowed faintly with the light of distant battles. The war never truly slept. It raged among the stars like an endless fire. And yet, in the cold chambers of the prison wing, something far more dangerous than war was beginning to awaken. Princess Lyra Vena moved quietly through the corridors, her silver cloak trailing behind her. She should not have been there. Every step risked discovery. Every glance from the guards was a reminder of betrayal. Yet still she went, carrying with her the same lantern she always brought to the human cell. Inside, Ethan Cross waited. He had counted the hours, pacing back and forth like a caged beast. His body bore the wounds of battle, but his spirit was unbroken. And when he saw her, stepping out of the shadows, his heart leaked in a way he could not explain. "Princess," he said with a rough edge in his voice, half mocking, half sincere. Lyra tilted her head, her eyes catching the faint glow of the lantern. "Still alive, Commander?" "Barely," Ethan muttered. Then, with a faint smirk, "Your hospitality leaves much to be desired." For the first time that night, Lyra laughed. A small sound, soft and rare. It startled him more than any weapon could. But before they could speak further, alarms ripped through the air. Red lights flared across the prison walls. Sirens echoed like the cries of metal beasts. The floor trembled under the sound of explosions. "What's happening?" Ethan demanded, his instincts already awake. Lyra's expression darkened. An attack. Human forces. They found a way to strike the palace. The irony was bitter. Ethan's people had come for war, not for him. He knew their tactics. Fast, brutal raids meant to destabilize enemy command. And here he was, trapped inside the very palace they had targeted. The doors burst open. Guards shouted in panic. Smoke filled the hall. And through the chaos, stray blasts from plasma rifles lit the air. Lyra's eyes locked on Ethan. "Stay down," she ordered. But Ethan had never been the type to stay down. As the cell door was forced open by a panicked guard, Ethan lunged, tackling the soldier to the ground. In one swift motion, he seized the alien's weapon. The cuffs still burned against his wrists, slowing him, but adrenaline made him unstoppable. He turned, firing at the shadows where attackers pressed forward. The blasts struck with precision, forcing them back. Lyra stared at him, this human, fighting with nothing but raw instinct and courage. For the first time, she saw not an enemy, but a warrior standing between her and death. They ran. Through smoke-filled corridors, past collapsing walls, Ethan led the way, pulling Lyra behind him. She wanted to protest, to remind him she was the heir to the throne, not someone to be dragged through danger, but the heat of his hand gripping hers silenced every word. Explosions rocked the palace. Debris rained from above. At one point, a beam collapsed, crashing toward them. Ethan shoved Lyra aside, taking the impact on his shoulder. Pain shot through him, but he refused to stop. Lyra's heart pounded. She had seen soldiers fight before. She had seen loyalty, duty, and sacrifice. But this was different. This man risked everything for her, not because she was a princess, not because she commanded him, but because he chose to. They found themselves cornered in an abandoned chamber, the door sealed behind them. Dust swirled through the air, and the sound of battle raged outside. For a long moment, neither spoke. Their breaths came heavy, their faces close, their bodies tense with the energy of survival. Lyra looked at him, at his bloodied face, his torn clothes, his burning eyes, and she whispered, almost against her will, "Why did you save me?" Ethan stared back, confused by his own answer. "Because I couldn't let you die." "You should hate me," Lyra pressed, her voice breaking. "You should hate everything I stand for." "I should," Ethan admitted. His voice was low, raw. "But I don't." The words hung between them, heavier than the war outside. Silence filled the room again. Then Lyra reached out, her hand trembling, and touched his face where blood streaked his cheek. The gesture was tender, hesitant, something forbidden. Ethan froze, then slowly leaned into her touch. "Lyra," he whispered. And before either could stop themselves, their lips met. It was not a kiss of peace, nor a kiss of victory. It was desperate, fierce, stolen from the jaws of war. The kiss of two enemies who should never have touched, yet could no longer resist. For that moment, the galaxy ceased to exist. There were no fleets, no empires, no armies screaming for their blood. There was only them. When they finally pulled apart, both were shaken. Lyra's eyes glistened, torn between fear and desire. Ethan's breath came heavy, his hands trembling. "This can't happen," she whispered. "If they knew." "I know," Ethan interrupted, his voice firm but pained. "It's wrong. It's impossible. But it's real." Lyra turned away, her cloak brushing the dust on the floor. Her heart screamed with truth she could not speak. Outside, the battle began to fade. The human raid had failed, retreating back into the night sky. The alarms silenced one by one, leaving only the echo of destruction. They were alive, but something far more dangerous than death now bound them together. Later, when the palace calmed, Lyra escorted Ethan back to his cell in silence. Neither spoke of what had happened in that chamber, neither dared to admit what it meant. But when Lyra walked away, her hand brushed her lips, still burning from the kiss. And when Ethan sat in the darkness of his cell, he closed his eyes and whispered her name. The spark had been lit. And sparks, in a galaxy filled with fire, could burn down empires. The palace of Vena Prime had survived the raid, but its walls carried new scars. Blackened stone, shattered glass, burn marks stretching across once perfect halls. Repairs began at once, but the damage went deeper than the eye could see. Whispers spread among the guards, rumors that the human prisoner had fought during the attack, that he had survived where others had fallen, and worse still, that Princess Lyra herself had been seen near him that night. Whispers like that could kill. In the council chamber, the air was heavy with smoke and anger. The alien elders sat in a circle of stone seats, their faces severe, their voices sharp. At the center stood General Kale Vena, Lyra's brother, his armor polished, his eyes burning with rage. "This cannot continue," Kale declared. "The humans strike at our very heart, and yet we waste time keeping one of their commanders alive. Why? Why do we allow this insult to breathe while our soldiers burn?" One of the elders nodded. "The princess claimed he might be useful, that his capture would benefit our cause." Kale's fist slammed against the stone table. "Useful? He is poison. He corrupts with his words. If he remains, he will spread weakness among us." The elders murmured, torn between Kale's fury and the princess's authority. Finally, the oldest among them spoke. Enough. The council will discuss his fate again. For now, the prisoner remains alive. Kale's jaw tightened, but he bowed in respect. Outwardly, he obeyed. Inwardly, his suspicion grew sharper. He would not let this stand. That evening, Lyra sat in her private chambers. Her balcony overlooked the endless stars, but she found no comfort in their glow. Her heart was heavy. Since that night in the abandoned chamber, she had thought of nothing but him, Ethan Cross, the human warrior. She could still feel his lips against hers, the heat of his hand holding hers in the chaos of battle. She told herself it was madness, a mistake, but the truth refused to fade. A knock at her door broke the silence. "Enter," she said softly. The door slid open, and Kale stepped inside. He carried no armor now, only the heavy presence of suspicion. His gaze swept the room, then landed on her. "Sister," he began slowly, "I've heard troubling things." Lyra forced calm into her voice. "Rumors spread quickly in times of war." "Not rumors," Kale pressed, stepping closer. "Facts. Gods speak of you in the prison wing during the raid. They say the human fought. They say you were with him." Lyra's heartbeat quickened, but her face remained still. "I was inspecting the damage, ensuring no secrets of our palace fell into enemy hands." Kale leaned closer, his eyes narrowing. "Do not lie to me, Lyra. You know what happens to those who betray their people." For a long moment, their eyes locked. Brother against sister, duty against doubt. Finally, Kale turned away, his voice low and dangerous. "Be careful. You carry the weight of our house. If you fall, you drag us all into the fire." When he left, Lyra's composure crumbled. She sank into her chair, trembling. The walls around her felt smaller, pressing in, suffocating. As if the pressure was not enough, the council soon summoned her. In their grand chamber, they spoke of strategy, of the future of the empire. And then, the oldest elder's voice cut through the air like a blade. "Princess Lyra, the time has come to secure unity among our people. You will marry Lord Drax, leader of the outer fleets. His armies are strong. His loyalty is absolute. Together, you will strengthen the empire." Lyra's breath caught. Marriage, not for love, not for choice, but for politics, for control. She began, her voice unsteady. "I am honored, but—" "There is no but," another elder interrupted. "Your duty is clear. This marriage will ensure victory. Your personal desires are irrelevant." The chamber fell silent. Lyra bowed her head, hiding the storm in her heart. Outwardly, she obeyed. Inwardly, she screamed. That night, she returned to the prison wing. She should have stayed away, but the weight pressing down on her left her no choice. She needed to see him. She needed to breathe again. Ethan was waiting, his sharp eyes catching her as she entered. "You look different," he said, noticing the exhaustion in her face. Lyra sank onto the stone bench near his cell. For a moment, she said nothing. Then, in a voice barely above a whisper, she confessed, "They want me to marry." Ethan's chest tightened. He didn't want to ask, but the words slipped out anyway. "Who?" "Lord Drax," she said bitterly. "A man of war, brutal, loyal to my brother. To them, it is perfect. To me—" She trailed off, her eyes filling with a pain she couldn't hide. Ethan stepped closer to the bars, his hands gripping the cold metal. "And you have no choice?" "No," Lyra whispered. "Not if I want to keep my throne. Not if I want to live." For a long moment, silence hung between them. Ethan's jaw clenched. He had faced battles, seen death, carried soldiers on his shoulders. But nothing hit him harder than the thought of losing her. "You don't deserve that," he said finally, his voice rough. "To be chained to someone you don't love." Lyra's eyes snapped to his. "And what do I deserve, Ethan? Love? Freedom? Both are forbidden to me." Ethan's grip on the bars tightened until his knuckles whitened. "Then break the rules. Take what they say you cannot have." His words hit her like fire. Reckless. Dangerous. Yet in them, she felt a truth no elder could erase. Her heart pounded as she whispered, "If they knew what we've already done, they would kill us both." Ethan's voice softened. but his eyes burned. Then let them try. For the first time in years, Lyra felt tears burn her eyes. She turned quickly, hiding them. You don't understand, Ethan. My people. They don't forgive. They don't forget. If I betray them, I betray everything I was born to protect. Ethan's voice dropped to a whisper. And if you betray yourself, what then? The question silenced her. It cut deeper than any blade. Outside, footsteps approached. Guards returning. Lyra rose quickly, pulling her cloak around her. She dared not stay longer. Princess, Ethan said, his voice urgent. She turned back, her eyes meeting his. Don't let them take your choice away. Not from you. Her lips parted, but no words came. Then she was gone, swallowed by the shadows of the palace. That night, Lyra lay awake in her chamber. She thought of the council's command, of her brother's warning, of the chains tightening around her. But most of all, she thought of him. His words echoed in her heart. Then break the rules. Take what they say you cannot have. And she knew, deep down, that soon a choice would come. A choice between duty and desire, between her people and herself. Between the crown and the human prisoner who had stolen her heart. The galaxy itself seemed to hold its breath. The Human Federation's war fleet gathered in the blackness of space. Thousands of warships forming a steel wall. On the other side, the alien Royal Armada stood ready, their vessels glowing like angry stars. Between them floated a fragile peace that could shatter at any moment. And in the heart of the storm stood two souls. Commander Kale, the human warrior, and Princess Serenia, the alien heir. They had risked everything for each other. They had betrayed their empires, broken centuries of hatred, and stolen moments of love in the shadows of war. But now, their secret was no longer hidden. Both sides knew. Both sides demanded blood. Kale stood on the bridge of his starship, his armor scarred from battle. His officers whispered, their eyes filled with suspicion. Some wanted him arrested. Others wanted him executed for treason. Yet his voice was calm as he stared at the holographic map of the battlefield. She's out there, he said softly. Serenia, and she's surrounded. Meanwhile, on the royal flagship, Serenia faced her father, the alien emperor. His face was carved from stone, his voice like thunder. You have shamed our bloodline, he roared. You loved the enemy. You brought dishonor to our throne. Do you know what you have done? Serenia lifted her chin, though her hands trembled. Yes, father. I found truth in the eyes of a man you call enemy. I found peace where you only see war. The emperor's gaze hardened. Then you will watch him die. His fleet will burn, and you will remember your betrayal as the last mistake of your life. The order went out. Weapons powered up. Engines roared. The first shots lit the void like falling suns. Missiles tore through shields, and plasma cannons ripped ships apart. The battle had begun. Kale's vessel shook as enemy fire slammed into its hull. His crew shouted warnings. Alarms blared, and yet Kale's focus was not on survival. It was on Serenia. Somewhere across this battlefield, she was trapped, and he would not leave her. Target their flagship, Kale commanded. But sir, that's suicide, cried his second officer. Do it. Kale's voice cut like steel. If we break through, I can reach her. The ship surged forward, weaving through chaos. Explosions painted the stars with fire. Fighters swarmed like angry insects, chasing, clawing, tearing. Kale gripped the controls as if his will alone could bend fate. On the royal flagship, Serenia's heart pounded as she watched the human vessel push through impossible odds. She knew it was him. She could feel it. Her father turned to her, rage in his eyes. He dares to come for you. Then let him die before your eyes. Father, please, she begged. End this war. End this hatred. If you destroy him, you destroy me as well. But the Emperor's fury blinded him. Then so be it. The flagship's cannons locked on Kale's vessel. Kale's ship was bleeding fire, its hull cracking, but still it pressed on. The bridge was chaos, smoke, sparks, screams. Yet Kale stood tall, unbroken. Then the impossible happened. Serenia acted. She moved faster than anyone expected, seizing a blade from one of her guards. She pressed it against her own chest. Her voice rang through the throne room, sharp as lightning. If he dies, I die too. The emperor froze. Silence filled the chamber. His soldiers shifted uneasily. They had never seen their princess like this, ready to fall for love. In that silence, Kale's voice came over the comms, cracked and filled with fire. Serenia, I'm here. Whatever happens, I will not let them take you. Tears burned in her eyes. Kale, I am yours. Even if the galaxy burns, I am yours. The emperor's hand trembled. For the first time, doubt entered his heart. Could he kill the human if it meant losing his daughter forever? But the moment of hesitation was enough. Kale's ship broke through the defenses and came face to face with the flagship. Both sides prepared for the final blow. Cannons ready, torpedoes locked. The next shot would decide everything. Kale closed his eyes, knowing this was the end. He had chosen love over duty, Serenia over his people, and now the galaxy itself would judge them. Then Serenia stepped forward. Her voice, calm and fierce, echoed through every channel, broadcast across the battlefield. Stop this madness. I am the heir of the royal throne. I choose peace. I choose love. If you kill him, you kill me, and with me dies your future. Her words cut through the noise of war. Fleets hesitated. Soldiers stared. The galaxy itself seemed to pause, waiting. Kale's heart thundered. He had never heard such strength in her voice. She was no longer just a princess. She was a warrior of love. The emperor's face twisted with rage and pain. He could not strike, not without losing everything. And in that moment, Kale knew this was their climax, their final stand against hatred. The stars burned brighter as the fate of two lovers, and perhaps the whole galaxy hung in the balance. The battlefield was frozen. Thousands of warships, human and alien, hovered in silence. Cannons were armed, torpedoes ready, but not a single shot was fired. All eyes were fixed on the royal flagship where Princess Serenia had spoken. Her voice still echoed through the channels, soft but unshakable. I choose peace. I choose love. If you destroy him, you destroy me too. Kale stood on his burning ship, his hands trembling on the console. He could hear her voice cutting through the storm, and for the first time in years of war, he felt hope. On the alien flagship, the Emperor's fury burned in his eyes, but there was something else too, a shadow of fear. His soldiers no longer looked at him with blind obedience. They were staring at Serenia, the princess, with something new in their gaze, respect. Serenia. The Emperor's voice cracked, almost human in its pain. You would betray your own bloodline for him. She lifted her chin, her blade still pressing against her own chest. No, father, I betray nothing. I bring honor, not shame. You speak of bloodlines, but what is the worth of a throne built on hatred? What is the worth of victory if our hearts remain empty? The Emperor staggered back, as if struck by her words. Around him, his counselors whispered. Soldiers shifted. The silence of doubt spread like fire. Kale took a deep breath. His ship was barely holding together, yet his voice came strong through the comms. Enough blood has been spilled. If my death ends this war, then let it be so. But I will not stand against her. Not anymore. The words were like lightning. Both sides heard them. Both sides felt the weight. A human commander, feared across the galaxy, was ready to give his life not for victory, but for love. Serenia's tears sparkled in the dim light. She lowered her blade slightly, her hand trembling. No, Kale, you will not die today. Not like this. Her father's fists clenched. He wanted to roar, to crush the human, to end this shame. But the moment was gone. The galaxy was watching. His daughter had spoken, and the fleets had heard her. If he killed Kale now, he would not only lose Serenia, but also his people's faith. Finally, with a voice heavy like stone, the Emperor gave the order, stand down. The words rippled through the fleet. Weapons powered down, cannons cooled, ships pulled back. The storm of war began to fade. On the human side, commanders hesitated, stunned. Then, slowly, they too began to lower their weapons. For the first time in generations, the two fleets faced each other in silence instead of fire. Kale's knees almost buckled. He had not expected mercy. His ship was wrecked, his crew broken, yet they were alive. Alive because Serenia had defied the galaxy. Serenia dropped the blade and fell to her knees, breath shaking. She had risked everything, but she had won, at least this one fragile moment of peace. Kale's voice reached her again, softer now. Serenia, you saved us. You saved me. She closed her eyes, tears falling. No, Keel, we saved each other. The Emperor turned away, his face hidden in shadow. He said nothing more, but in his silence was a storm. Serenia knew this was not true peace. It was only the beginning of a fragile truce, one that could break at any time. But still, there was hope. Hours later, Kale's crippled ship docked near the royal flagship under a ceasefire flag. Soldiers glared as he stepped off, his body weak, but his eyes burning. And there, in the great hall, Serenia ran to him. For a heartbeat, there was no war, no thrones, no armies. There was only her arms around him, his hand in hers, and the truth that had defied empires. You came for me, she whispered. I always will, he answered. Behind them, the Emperor watched in silence. His heart was torn, but deep down he knew the galaxy had changed. His daughter had chosen love, and no empire could chain her anymore. For the first time in centuries, the humans and aliens stood at the edge of something new. Not victory, not defeat, but a chance. As the stars burned quietly outside, Kale and Serenia held each other. The war was not over. The hatred would not vanish in a day. But their love had lit a spark in the darkness, a spark strong enough to guide even the coldest galaxy. And in that moment, both of them knew the truth. Their story was not the end. It was the beginning of a new world. The stars burned quietly again. The great fleets drifted apart, carrying scars of war, but also carrying something new, silence instead of fire. A silence born not from fear, but from a choice. The choice of two hearts who refused to bow to hatred. Commander Kale, the human warrior, and Princess Serenia, the alien heir, had stood against empires. They had risked exile, betrayal, and death. And in the end, their love had stopped a war that seemed endless. But peace was fragile. The Emperor's silence was heavy with unspoken rage. The human council, too, would not forgive Kale so easily. Both sides whispered in secret, "This is not the end. The war may return." Yet, in the middle of all that danger, Kale and Serenia found strength in each other. The narrator's voice rises, soft but powerful. Sometimes, the greatest battles are not fought with weapons, but with hearts. Sometimes, courage is not about killing the enemy. It is about holding the hand of someone the world tells you to hate. Their story was more than forbidden love. It was a spark of hope in a galaxy drowning in fire. A spark that could grow into peace, or be crushed into ashes. Kale stood with Serenia at the edge of the docking bay, watching the endless stars. His hand slipped into hers, rough and scarred, while hers was gentle but strong. "What happens now?" she whispered. Kale's eyes narrowed at the horizon. "Now, we fight again, not against each other, but for them. For a future where love isn't a crime." Serenia smiled, though her heart trembled. "Then we fight together." And with that vow, their journey was not over, it was only beginning. The narrator closes. This was the story of a human warrior and an alien princess who dared to love. A love that defied empires, changed the course of war, and lit a spark of hope across the stars. But in the shadows of peace, enemies still plot. Armies still whisper. The galaxy has not forgiven them. Not yet. A final beat of silence. Will their love survive the storms yet to come? Or will the galaxy crush them under the weight of war once more? The answer lies in the next chapter. The screen fades to black. Words appear in glowing letters across the stars.